Okay, so just half. If it was just of the 22 victims that had been packing heat, the odds of him killing more than 3 to 4 people would have been zero, statistically speaking. If just half of these victims were packing heat, this wouldn't have happened. 18 people died. This may not make any sense to the lefties, but if everyone was issued a firearm at the age of 18 and given proper training in their senior year of high school, gun violence would dramatically decrease. The gun is a tool. If more good people had the right tools, the bad guys would virtually just not exist. They'd be non existent. And like I said, this is very interesting. The crazy shooter. It's always these crazy shooters, crazy shooters. They're not planted, they're just crazy shooters, okay? But they only shoot random people and they always shoot them with these so called assault weapons. It's never like a targeted attack. It's always just random people. I think it's odd, but I don't think that it's a coincidence or I think the timing, let me phrase it this way. I think the timing is super interesting when it comes to the Supreme Court of the United States. They're supposed to be hearing on November 7th this case. It's called Rahimi versus the United States. Look up the case. It's about Second Amendment rights, and it's going to have constitutional impact. So they're looking at the constitutionality of a federal ban. So we don't have a federal ban right now. Joe Biden has been pushing for a federal ban on possession of guns. Now, this is a federal ban, but what it does, it takes a look at individuals who have been subject to domestic violence restraining orders. So the question comes to the court after Zaki Rahimi is his name. He's a Texas guy, and he got a restraining order back in 2019 when he and his girlfriend got into an argument. Allegedly, he knocked down his girlfriend, dragged her to the back of his car. A year later, the police found guns and ammunition in his house. Now, the guy's not convicted of any kind of assault. He's not convicted of domestic battery, nothing like that. He was charged with then violating a federal ban. He wasn't supposed to have those guns and ammunition because he had a restraining order against him as it relates to domestic violence. So, who am I talking about? It's the main guy. His name is Robert Card. 18 people dead. Kieran Jean Pierre got out there and she goes, well, Republicans can stop this if they want to. It's just ridiculous. The usual suspects are out there and they're grabbing guns. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, 6:08 a.m. It's a Friday. And I'm so excited because later tonight, I'm going to be with the McLean County Republicans at the Doubletree at 6 o'clock with my good friend from Cancel This, Ty Smith, Modern Renaissance Band. He's got thousands upon thousands of subscribers on YouTube. As always, I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can see me there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. Ty and I will be out there with the Illinois Supreme Court Justice Lisa Holder White. She is dynamic, and I am so excited to see her. What are we going to be talking about this Friday? Well, I've got a lot. The Iowa governor, she goes off on this SMUG reporter. She claims claims she's banning books. The Iowa governor, she is not banning books, okay? She's getting these nasty pornographic books out of the classroom that should have never been in the classroom, okay? You wouldn't put a Hustler magazine in the classroom, would you? No, because it's against the law. You can't expose children to sexually explicit or harmful material. And the Iowa governor, I love this governor. I saw her, Governor Reynolds, when I went to a Trump rally a couple of years back, and she is just really cool. I like this governor a lot, but she goes off on this smug reporter, and I think you guys are going to like it. A little bit later, we do have to talk about the Jewish students who were barricaded in this school library by pro-Hamas protesters. Uh, the video is rough. There's a video of the pro-Hamas. They're banging on the school library doors. They're trying to bust through the window to get to the Jewish students who are locked and barricaded in this school library. They're trying to get to those students. But the behind the scenes details about how this even happened and how it came came to happen. I mean, it's disgusting, it's disturbing. I'm gonna unpack it here on the Buzz. Plus, this is gonna surprise you. Your children are going to woke schools, and you pay for those woke schools with your tax dollars. McLean County property taxes, they're going up, and we always write those checks, right? Or I don't know if it comes out automatically. I don't know how you pay your property taxes. But my question to you today is, how much do you pay in property taxes? Go ahead, comment on the video. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can also text me at 309-451-9299. How much do you pay? Our property taxes, they're going up here in McLean County. And I'm going to unpack how much of that money actually goes to the school district, what the school district spends it on. Point is, your children are going to woke schools and you are paying for it. So let's get down to business. For reasons only known to corporate journalismers, keeping porn out of like school classrooms is considered book banning. I have no idea why the corporate journalismers believe this, but they do. Even though if you want to get your hands on these materials, if you want to get your hands on genderqueer, on blankets, on I mean, Patience and Esther, a lot of these books. If you want to get your hands on them, you could get on Amazon and you can get them delivered to your house that afternoon. It's not a book banning, okay? But Kim Reynolds, the Iowa governor, she signed a law requiring that every book made available to kids in school are age appropriate. Well, who would be against that? Of course, the corporate journalismers and leftists, but I repeat myself, okay? They are against age appropriate material. Why would they be against age appropriate material? And she wants these books, Kim Reynolds, the governor in Iowa, she wants these books to be free of any kind of descriptions or visuals that depict a sex act. And that is the definition of pornography. If you have an image or a description of sexual acts, that is under definition pornography. Okay. So she just essentially made a law that said, we're not going to allow pornography in the schools. I love it because the leftists, they always say that that's not in the schools. But here we have a smug reporter who accused the governor of book banning. So she's not denying that those books are actually in the schools, the reporter. Okay, so she's actually suggesting that the books are in the school and that the governor is banning that book. And I love it. The Iowa governor actually went bananas on this corporate journalism. Or let's take a listen. Here we go.
That I'd be happy to share. I can remember, I don't know if you remember, but actually in an interview I did with WHO 13, I read some actual excerpts from the book. It was All Boys Aren't Blue. Actually read them, and you all couldn't even show that portion of the interview without a disclaimer, and still didn't show it because you were uncomfortable. The media was uncomfortable with saying that on TV. But yet somebody believes that our kids should be subjected to that. I'm a grandma. I was a parent. I think moms and grandmas and just they want their kids to get a good education. They want them to be able to read. They want them to be able to do math, science, civics, really understand what the history of this country is, good and bad. And we're not where we need to be, especially after COVID. And we're lucky because we kept our kids in school, but we are not where we should be. And the data that's going to come out is going to reflect that, especially with kids that are special needs and kids with disabilities. We are way off course. Our kids and our teachers deserve better. They deserve the tools to help these kids succeed, not a damn distraction on a nasty, pornographic book that should never, ever be in a classroom. Now, if you're a parent and you think it's important, this is good for your child to have access to that. Okay, go buy the book. We didn't ban them. Go buy the book, sit down, have a conversation with your child. But let's not put that on the teachers and let's not put that on the schools. And I think it's pretty clear. And if they can't distinguish that, then, I don't know, maybe we better take a look at what they should be dealing with. So it's just a distraction and they don't like it. And so they're blowing it out of proportion. It's simple. The words are clear and follow the law.
Boom. Kim Reynolds. I want a governor like that. I so desperately want Kim Reynolds as my governor. But we're stuck with JB. The NPR, okay, the government paid radio, public radio. They report the book as, quote, it's about growing up as Black and queer and always feeling different, but not having the words to express it. However, the few words that the author did have, okay, were overly sexual. If I understand the rules correctly here, the media not reporting Governor Reynolds' reading from the book means they are banning the book. They're banning the book. So they're actually the homophobes. They're possibly transphobic too. Okay. So they didn't even report on Governor Reynolds reading from the book. They omitted that from their report. They didn't show what the book was about. And if you ask me, if the book is truly about growing up as Black and queer and not having the words to express it, if it's just this Black queer book, then what's so wrong with sharing it with everybody? Are you homophobic? Are you transphobic? Possibly. You'd think that it'd be clear if you as a parent feel your kid learning about uh uh I can't even I giving uh oral sex. I mean, the books are disgusting. I can't even get into it on the radio. I'm not gonna get into it on the radio. But the if you as a parent feel your kid shouldn't be learning about that stuff or showing them uh graphic play by play of two dudes screwing each other is crucial to their development, go on Amazon.com and buy it yourself. Okay. If you, as a parent, honestly believe that that is so crucial to your kids' learning that you need to show them pornographic materials, then why don't you just go on Amazon.com and buy it for them? You'll get the book by the time they're home from school, and you can enjoy the smut together. You can enjoy that crap together if you want, the kid and the parent. I mean, it's illegal, but at least I'm not paying for it at this point. At least you're paying for it on Amazon, and the book is getting shipped to your house, and my tax dollars aren't going towards pornography being forced down the throats of children. Uh, if you think it's so crucial to their learning, then why don't you just go on Amazon and buy the book and you read it to the kid? Okay. Instead, because of progressive want this material in schools, you get uh, this perversion in the schools, and they redefined the word book banning. They changed it. Governor Reynolds doesn't have time for that. She made that clear. She goes, look, the law is very clear. I am saying that pornography cannot be given to school age children to children. Last night, I'm going to get into this story. I got to take a quick break, or 2 nights ago, I think it was 2 nights ago, Cooper Union College, you guessed it, New York City, 4 Jewish students, they were barricaded inside of a school library by angry pro-Hamas protesters. They tried to escape through tunnels, they tried to escape from their New York City school through tunnels for their safety. This video is terrible, but the behind the scenes of how this actually started is even worse. I'm back next. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. How much do you pay in property taxes? Because today, Friday, I wanted to do a special little bit about property taxes and where it goes because the House speakership, yeah, Iran, the US going to war in all of these different places. This is something that you have very little control of at this point. What do you have control over? I like to bring that to you. So this Friday in the 7 o'clock hour, I'm going to get to it. The property tax dollars here in McLean County. Where is that going? This should surprise you. Your children are going to woke schools, and you pay for it. That's really where your property tax are going. Your property tax increased if you live in McLean County. I got a text here. He says $6,000 plus. Wow, that's incredible. I think the average property tax bill, I'm gonna be looking at this here. I think it's about like $3,800. I think that's the average. So you're paying a lot. Illinois, we've got the second highest property taxes in the nation. We're right behind New Jersey. So we're gonna be unpacking that because what are the schools spending it on? And does more money actually mean better schools? We'll unpack it here coming up in just a little bit. But before I took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about this. This college, it's truly disturbing. It's the Cooper Union College, and a couple of nights ago, you guessed it is in New York City. These Jewish students, they were barricaded in a library by angry Hamas protesters, and they had to escape the New York City school through little tunnels to try to get to safety. The video was terrible. I watched it. You can see the kids pounding, the pro Hamas protesters pounding on the door to try to get to the Jewish students. Now, this New York City councilwoman, she's pretty cool. She's conservative. Her name is Inna Vernikov. So she shared the backstory about how this all happened on X, on Twitter. And the backstory is even worse than the actual footage because the backstory is truly disturbing of how this even came to happen, where these Jewish students found themselves barricaded inside of the school library with these pro Hamas supporters banging on the banging on the doors trying to get to these Jewish kids. So the councilwoman from New York City, you might actually remember this woman. Inna Vernikov is her name. She's conservative, and she was actually arrested for having a gun on her during one of these many pro Hamas rallies that have been going on in New York City. They've been going on in campuses nationwide. So she actually spoke with the four students to try to get this backstory. And the mostly peaceful pro Hamas rally walkout was supposed to take place outside of the school. Okay, but faculty members canceled classes in support of this rally, this walkout, and they actually participated in the rally themselves. So faculty, they even actually gave out extra credit. Folks, they gave out extra credit to people who showed up to the rally. So this is so much worse than just the video because it's almost like the faculty in the school was behind this pro Hamas rally walkout, and it was supposed to take place outside of the school, but they didn't want it to just take place outside of the school. They wanted it to come inside of the school. The faculty, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't have canceled their classes and participated in the rally themselves. So it was supposed to stay outside, but the pro Hamas students, they stormed inside of the school and they got away with it. They barged their way inside of the school. It wasn't supposed to be inside of the school. They had sticks, they had anti-Semitic signs, and the councilwoman, she's got the skinny here on all of this. She tells us on X that the police were told to not enter the school. They weren't allowed to enter the school. after it was stormed by this pro-Hamas protester group. However, the dean of students was able to escape out the back with his security. Good for him, right? The dean of students, he was fine. But guess who was caught in the school library? These Jewish students. They were trapped in the library. They were terrified, having an angry mob of people chanting at them, "You must be eliminated. You must be eliminated." That's like, and this isn't even Gaza. This is the United States. But in the Democrat Party controlled New York City, there's no difference. There's no difference. It's like we're living in Gaza. It's like these Jewish kids were living in Gaza. So there's been no statement made by the school about the pro-Hamas supporters storming into the building, even though they weren't allowed to in the building, like I said, or the fact that the Jewish students were afraid of even coming back to class, where it isn't safe for them. Okay, so they didn't even want to come back to class the next day. So this happened a couple of days ago. The Jewish students, most of them have dropped out altogether. They're dropping out because, look, folks, if they attend class, they could risk bodily harm. I mean, these people were pounding on the door to try to get to the Jewish students. I find myself running out of words more and more. I do. I don't even know what to say. The progressive hypocrisy on display would be one thing if these students weren't lucky to be alive right now. Okay, these students are lucky to be alive. If a conservative speaker gives a speech on a college campus, or if a conservative Christian even just walks a Jewish family, I talked about Peter Christokis or Christos. Peter Christos, he's a TPUSA staffer. He was beaten in Skokie, Illinois, because he was walking an elderly Jewish couple to their car after a pro-Israel rally that was held in a synagogue. Look, if this college, on these college campuses, if there's a conservative like Riley Gaines, maybe, okay, the words that the conservative speaker gives in their speech, that's all, oh, that's all violence, that's all hate speech. Yes, because Riley Gaines wanting to protect girls' sports is called violence, and the Democrat Party condones being violent by removing her from campus. Okay, so the Democrat Party is totally fine with Riley Gaines being shoved into this little closet, essentially, at this college she was speaking at, because these protesters that said that she was giving this violent speech scared her. Riley Gaines, she had a couple security guards, shoved her into a closet. She was barricaded into a closet to try to uh, avoid being beaten to death. Who knows what would have happened to Riley Gaines? Who knows what would have happened to these Jewish students? I would talk about the progressive hypocrisy, but it's so much more than that, because the kids are lucky to be alive right now. Here we have a case where students saying violent things and actually terrorizing students, uh, and they made you know, they weren't even allowed inside of the school. The protest was supposed to happen outside of the school. They didn't call the police. The police weren't allowed to enter the building to break up the pro-Hamas protesters and get them out of the building so that way the Jewish students could be free. They had to sneak out the back through literal tunnels. Like, this is straight up Nazi Germany. What's going on in New York City? That's what's going on. And what? What did these Jewish students do? They made the tactical error of checking out books while wearing yarmulkes. Okay, that's their fault. That's what their crime is. It's gross. It's disgusting. It's who leftists that control New York City are. That's who they are. They made it to where those police weren't able to break up that pro-Hamas supporters. They were told by the school district to not come inside the school. And the dean of students, it got so bad, he actually had to escape out the back with his security. Good for him. But guess who was left behind? It was those Jewish students. It's disturbing. It's disgusting. All right. I do have to take a quick break. But when we come back, I've got property taxes. I want to talk about those. I want to talk about that in the 7 o'clock hour. There's a few other things. Hey, you can see me in the live stream. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. If you're watching the live stream, be sure to smash the like button and share this out with your friends. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. I'll be back next. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button. And, you know, one thing about these woke DAs, they are so anti victim. It's not even funny. And it just goes under the radar. So these progressive DAs distort their job, and they are elected and subsequently make communities less safe. So your DA is so important. We've got a pretty good DA right here, right now. But this is so sad because we've got this city DA, LA DA. He's a progressive prosecutor, and if you live in a big city, you might have noticed that it appears that victim rights are ignored while rampant crime goes up. That's the case in Los Angeles. It's the case in Chicago. George Gascon is the guy in LA. And you won't believe this story. This poor woman, she's expressing shock after her alleged attacker won't face a felony, although it was caught on tape, him almost sexually assaulting her in broad daylight. Yes. So that's next on the buzz. It's Friday, and I'm so excited because guess what? At 6 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be at the Doubletree with the McLean County Republicans. Smith and myself, we are going to be moderating the event. We're going to be emceeing the event, and we're going to be hanging out with Lisa Holder White. She's an Illinois Supreme Court Justice. For more details, contact the McLean County Republicans. The Doubletree Hotel tonight at 6 o'clock. You might be able to go, but you're probably not going to be fed. It is an annual dinner, and I just love it. Every year I go, and this is the first time where I get to actually MC the event. So it's going to be nice to see all of my Republican friends out there. Now, coming up in just a little bit, progressive policies embolden criminals. We know this, and they abandon victims. That's the other part. We know that it emboldens criminals, but we also know that it abandons victims. So in this story, this woman is expressing shock because she heard that her alleged attacker is not going to be facing felony charges after it was caught on tape. There's footage of her almost getting sexually assaulted. This was attempted rape in broad daylight. And this 30-year-old guy, he allegedly almost sexually assaulted this woman. I mean, I watched the video. It's terrifying. It's terrible. But guess who's behind this? It's George Gascon. I've talked about him a little bit earlier this week. But his name is George Gascon. He's the LADA. He's a progressive prosecutor. And, if you notice in these progressive cities, and if you live in a progressive city, I'm sure you understand that victims' rights are being ignored while rampant crime goes up. So I talk a lot about the rampant crime going up, but I haven't really talked about the victims and the role this has on victims of crime. Okay, this rampant crime going up, them not getting prosecuted correctly. This guy should be facing attempted rape, but he's not. 30-year-old man allegedly sexually assaulted this poor woman along this downtown Long Beach sidewalk in LA. And it was in broad daylight. There's security camera footage, and you watch it. And I mean, this black homeless man, he 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 pushes her to the ground. He stalked her. There was a good Samaritan. His name was Dan McIntyre, and he knew something was off about the situation. He was sitting around the corner when he saw this suspect salivating and watching this woman, and then he was pursuing this woman. It's a terrible story, just absolutely terrible. Um, let's take a listen to the victim. I wanna just get into the story, and then a little bit later, we are gonna be talking about property taxes, here in McLean County because they are going up. You might not be able to, say who our next speaker is. Might not be able to stop the war in, Israel or stop the war in Ukraine. You might not be able to control those things, but you can definitely control where your money is going when it comes to property taxes, and you can fight against your local officials who continue to raise those property taxes on you. So I will get to that story. But first, let's take a listen here to this local woman. She gets attacked by a homeless man. This is in broad daylight. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, you can actually look at the security cam footage. and judge for yourself if this guy was attempting to rape her. Here we go.
Next thing I know, I feel my dress being lifted up all the way. And I feel him right here on my neck. And next thing I know, he grabs my hips and he thrusts himself into me. And I couldn't like break away. So I just turned really quick to kind of break his grip. And then he pushed me to the ground. And now I'm learning that the DA deems it not attempt of rape because he didn't tell me he was going to rape me, which clearly means the DA, well, doesn't have a daughter, first of all, or have any care for women's protection and safety whatsoever, because you literally have a video of him doing this. The next thing.
Yep. The video, it is damning, and it's on security cam. I mean, how? And in the video, you see this Good Samaritan. His name is Dan McIntyre, and he gets a sense about something's wrong. So not only is it on video, but you have a witness, and this witness says his tongue was just going in and out, and he was just focused on who was right ahead of him. He goes, he looked demon possessed. If I ever have seen a demon possessed, that's it. He goes, that's the guy. He's demon possessed. This is the witness on the scene. Now, this guy, this 30-year-old man, Avila is his name, Miguel Avila, and he trailed behind the victim while also unzipping his pants. And you can see that in the security footage. He unzips his pants, and McIntyre knew something wasn't right. And he noticed the suspect actually pick up speed when the woman was kind of gaining a gap there on the sidewalk between herself and Miguel Avila. Just within seconds, Avila pulls up on the victim's dress, throws her down to the ground, and then McIntyre, he rushes, he jumps up out of his seat and pepper sprayed the possessed victim, the demon-possessed victim. So this is all happening in broad daylight. It's on camera, folks. And he goes, in the interview, her name is Rebecca Peterson. So Rebecca Peterson in the interview told ABC that DA George Gascon's office is refusing to charge the suspect with felony attempted rape because the attacker, quote, didn't say that he was going to. Are you serious right now? The guy is unzipping his pants. He pulls up her dress in broad daylight. It's all on tape. You know, because we prosecute for a crime. In order to prosecute you for a crime, you have to first admit guilt. No, that's definitely not how things have always worked in the justice system. You don't have to admit guilt in order for you to prosecute a crime. Are you kidding me? So, I mean, yes, she's right. The DA, it clearly means that he doesn't have a daughter. He doesn't give a damn about women's protection or safety, because here you have the suspect on video doing this, and the suspect was arrested and charged with sexual battery. And she goes, I'm just lucky that it happened in broad daylight and not at night when nobody was around. And she goes, I probably would have been raped had that guy not come up and pepper sprayed the guy. And I mean, wow. She goes, she plans on getting her gun license. And this is why women need guns. And these are the same people who want to take your guns away. The victims of these crimes, they are equipping themselves with guns now, and they don't like that. And they want to take guns away from victims of crime. Okay. And she goes, I plan to get my gun, and I'm going to carry a taser until I can get my gun, and I'm going to protect myself in the future. That's what she says. She goes, I want that guy in jail so that way he doesn't go out and actually rape somebody. This is actually why guns rights are women's rights. Okay. When I talk about guns rights, it's not really even a guns rights issue. Really, it's an attack on women's rights, because men, I'm sorry, guys. I mean, I'm going to inflate your ego a little bit. Guys listening, I'm telling you right now, you can defend yourself pretty well in comparison to a woman. Okay, you can defend yourself. If I were to have some sort of 6'3" guy come up to me and try to attack me, there is no way in hell that I am going to be able to fight back or to run faster than that guy. There's no way. So really an attack on gun rights, what we're seeing today after this mass shooting, really it's an attack on women's rights. Only the left can take something so normal like the law and like law and order and turn it into a partisan issue. Like this is law and order. The guy doesn't have to admit guilt in order for you to prosecute the crime. Progressive DAs distort the job, then they get elected. They get money from George Soros to get elected, and they make communities less safe. But it's highly likely that Gascon here is going to get elected again. Progressive voters tend to suffer from Stockholm syndrome, and they're easily fooled by progressive platitudes like "end mass incarceration." Right? Those are progressive platitudes. End mass incarceration. Sadly, I mean, I'm not expecting anything more from Los Angeles. I do have to take a quick break. Like I said, folks, I am going to get to the property taxes, I promise, because they are getting raised on you. And then a little bit later, we will be talking about Gavin Newsom because no, Gavin Newsom, what? He's not running for president. He's meeting with Xi Jinping. But no, he's not running. He hangs out with the Chinese president to discuss things like climate change, human rights, and fentanyl. But no, he's not running. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I do want to get into property taxes in the 7 o'clock hour. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. You are listening to Cities 92.9. This is all powered by our station, and we can't do what we do without you subscribing. So go ahead, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. If you're watching, hit the like button. That also helps. Let me guess, the DA is a Democrat, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a progressive Democrat, and he also got a bunch of funding from George Soros. So, Jacqueline, yes, he 100% is a Democrat. Even further, I mean, he's not just a Democrat; he's a progressive. We know this DA is a Democrat. Yes, Democrats always try to label conservatives as restrictive Nazis, while all the while they're degrading social morals and they're calling that empowering. Yeah. So not here in the United States. I think it was actually in Germany. They are now putting in glory holes. And I had to look up what a glory hole was because I really don't know. But they're installing glory holes in schools in their bathrooms because that's inclusive of queer ideology or gender of gay people, homosexuals. So yeah, they're going to sit there and they're going to say that all of this is socially empowering, or this is like, empowering, and that this is what we should do. And Bob, you're so right. They say that we're the Nazis, but we're not banning even the books. We're just saying, and Kim Reynolds, the governor of Iowa, she made this law and it's very explicit in the law. All it covers is it says, hey, these books in school libraries, they have to be age appropriate. That's what the law says. It says they have to be age appropriate. There cannot be any kind of sexual acts described or depicted in these books. So the law is very clear. It just says no sex acts depicted in the books. And for some odd reason, the corporate journalismer, she gets out there and she accuses Kim Reynolds of book banning, which is so funny because I think the leftists, they don't quite understand when they say that, oh, you're banning these books. At first, it was the books don't exist. You're making this up. There's no pornography in the schools. But then it kind of morphed into, oh, now you're book banning. So which is it? Was the book were the books not in the schools originally, and that was a lie, and that was conspiracy theory? That's conspiracy theory. Or is it they are in the schools and you're book banning? So which is it? Because at first that's what you told me, that the books weren't in the schools. Then you find out, and then these parents start to go into the schools. I went into the Bloomington Public Library, the children's section, right there, as plain as day. Graphic novel. Enjoy a graphic novel. It was promoted to kids. There were signs, and right next to Green Eggs and Ham at kid eye level. Like if I was a child and if I was much shorter, this would be right in front of me. Right next to Green Eggs and Ham was Patience and Esther. You flip through Patience and Esther. It's about lesbian sex. There's lesbian sex depicted. There's even a threesome depicted. for young children to pick up and read and be exposed to and even check out, because I asked the Bloomington Public Library, okay, if I'm a kid, can I check this out? Like, what's the age limit on this? Oh, if you're a child, you can check that out. What? Come on. You gotta be kidding me. So at first they're constantly changing. At first they said, oh, that doesn't exist. But then I was like, okay, if it doesn't exist, then I'll just go into the library and check it out for myself. I go into the library, check it out myself. I post the pictures, I post the content on the website. And then they're like, oh, now it's book banning. Now it's all about book banning. So yes, if you guys are watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We're going to be back talking a little bit about some Halloween things. I want to lighten things up a little bit here before we get into property taxes. If you pay property taxes, how much do you pay? I'm curious. So far, none of it is close to the averages here. I'll be back next. Mm, 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 mm. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. It's a Friday and it's Frankenstein Friday. Frankenstein. Yes. So the Halloween fun begins. Today is Frankenstein Friday, so it's a great day to dress up and uh be Frankenstein. Now, trick-or-treating hours. I've got a few of them here for McLean County. Bloomington citywide, we're looking at 5 to 8 on actual Halloween. That's October 31st. That's citywide. And then when you look at downtown, October 27th, that's tonight. So you can dress up as Frankenstein tonight and go downtown. Bloomington, they've got trick or treating hours from 5 to 8 p.m. tonight. So Chenoa, we've got 5 to 8 on October 31st. We've got 5 to 8 in Colfax, October 31st. Danvers, we're doing 5:30 to 8 p.m. on October 31st. Downs, 5 to 8 on October 31st. And Leroy, it's 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. Here in Normal, yesterday in Uptown, they had some trick-or-treating hours, but citywide, the October 31st trick-or-treating hours is 5 to 8 p.m. So if you want a complete list of trick-or-treating hours, head to our website. We've made it easy for you. Cities929.com. Today is also National Black Cat Day. I do have a black cat. His name is Colt. Yes, it's named after the gun. Colt, the gun maker. So yes, we named him Colt, and no, he is not bad luck. We did adopt him. He's a little black kitty. He's adorable. So do you have a black cat? I'm back next. Good morning, folks. We're going to be back in just a little bit. You're listening to Cities 92.9. morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead and smash that like button. We're coming back, and I am going to unpack all thing property taxes. So I've had people texting in this morning. I pay $6,000, Cat. I live in Downs, and I pay $9,000 for my property tax. So Illinois, we are the second highest when it comes to average property taxes. I'm going to get into those numbers and I'm going to explain where the property taxes are going. Bottom line, your children are going to woke schools and you actually pay for your property, like your property tax dollars are going to those woke schools. It's not really going towards infrastructure. It's not really going towards police, fire, nothing like that. Um, a majority of your taxes go to schools, a big portion of them. So McLean County property taxes, they're going up. This was a November um, 16th meeting where the board was set to vote on the proposed $147 million fiscal 2024 budget. So we're going to talk a little bit about that because people are confused. You've got all of these politicians out there saying that I'm not raising your taxes, I'm not raising your taxes, but your taxes are being raised. So what happened there? So I'm going to unpack that here on the buzz. If you're watching, go ahead, smash the like button. We're back. This isn't going to surprise you, okay? Your children, they're going to woke schools and you pay for those woke schools with your property tax dollars. McLean County property taxes are going up. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, 7:05 a.m. and at the November 16th meeting, the McLean County Board, they were set to vote on this proposed $147 million fiscal 2024 budget. Okay. And before I get into it, I want to make this clear. The reason why I'm talking about this today is because you can actually change what's going on locally here when it comes to your property taxes. You can do that by voting. You can do that by contacting your county board members. You can do that by counting your or contacting your school district. And you can actually affect change here in this area. It's your property tax dollars. I've got Kristen Grundle here. She's a fantastic woman. I'm telling you. When I think of a leader here in the county, it's Kristen Grundler. Now she says our property taxes in Downs are $9,000. That's insane. We have no curb and cutters in our neighborhood. Uh, and we have crappy water. All we have is Tri Valley. Yes. So it's all going to the schools. It's not going towards hard infrastructure. We're going to get into that. But this November 16th meeting, they were set to vote on this proposed $147 million fiscal 2024 budget. That's up. In September, the board heard details of that document, the budget, which presents a 15% increase over this year's. Okay, so this year's fiscal year, it's up 15% from the last fiscal year. On Thursday, a public hearing was held about the proposed increase to the property tax levy. Okay, so the county proposes a flat tax rate. Okay, it doesn't go up at all. The rate isn't going up, but here's the thing, property values are going up. So that the county proposes a flat tax rate at just over 91 cents per $100 of equalized assessed value, EAV. Okay. But depending on whether that person's property was assessed higher this year, the owner could be paying more in taxes for the fiscal year 2024. So technically, the rate didn't go up. So your taxes, the rate didn't go up, but your taxes are going up. And it's really just because they have a bigger budget and they want that tax money to go towards the bigger budget. That's why they're keeping that tax rate the same. It's a flat tax rate. It didn't rise. So, county board member Chuck Erickson, I've talked with him. He told me that there's an issue with something called a state multiplier. This is kind of a new thing. It's also known as the equalization factor. So, in the state of Illinois, that's the reason why a lot of your properties are assessed higher this year. You get numbers from the state and they make the county equalize all of the county's assessments. Okay, so it's an equalizer, this state multiplier. So some townships, they had higher increases than others. Our county, our property values went way up. So the county assessor didn't apply that multiplier. The county assessor didn't apply that multiplier. The state steps in and they equalize the assessments. Okay, so it's all the state. It should be done locally. Okay, the county assessor should be assessing the properties. That kind of makes sense, right? But no, the state comes in and they equalize everything, and subsequently that leads to some areas having a higher EAV than others. Okay, so let's talk about property taxes, because it's not really your property. The pursuit of happiness, the implication there, the pursuit of happiness, it's really about owning private property. Okay, you don't really even own property in this country, in America. We should do without property taxes, and here's why. When you pay property taxes, you don't own your property anymore. Essentially, you're renting a lot, because at the end of the day, if you don't pay those property taxes, Kristen Grundler, she pays $9,000 a year annually. We've got $6,000 a year from another texter. How much do you pay in property taxes? I'm curious. You can text in at 309-451-9299, or you can also see me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Yes, so the property taxes, if you don't pay them, here's what happens. Guys with guns, literal guns, will come and take you to jail. The IRS will come take you to jail if you do not pay them. Your house could be totally paid off, but you've got to pay your property taxes. So essentially, you are renting your lot to the government. I mean, from the government, because if you don't pay, then you're going to get evicted and they are going to take you to jail. They're going to haul you off to jail. And I think it's so funny that these people, these are the same people that believe you shouldn't own guns. These IRS agents believe you shouldn't own guns, but they have guns and they can come take your property away from you by convicting you and putting you in jail. No, I'm not saying you should take out an AR-15 anytime somebody tries to collect property taxes. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying, okay? I just find it interesting that they've got guns, but these are the same people who don't want you to have guns, but they have the guns and they can come take your property away, especially if you don't take property taxes. If they come and collect, likely you didn't pay your property tax bill. Now, I don't know how you pay your property tax bill. There's sometimes automation. Sometimes you can pay it month to month. Sometimes you can pay it all at once. I don't really know how it works. I don't own property, right? It's I don't do that, so I don't pay property taxes per se. It's kind of included in my rent, right, as an apartment rentee. Okay, so they do vary depending on locations. Okay, your property tax bill will vary depending on locations. For example, I've got somebody watching in the stream right now on YouTube. They said here in Tennessee, we pay $1,200. That's a very low property tax bill. That's insane. So I just told you that people here in McLean County are paying $9,000 a year. In Tennessee, they're paying $1,200 a year. I think that it's evil, and I think that it is unconstitutional, actually, because the pursuit of happiness means that you get to own something. That implies ownership, private ownership, and you don't own anything when it comes to property taxes. You don't even own your own home because your home sits on that property. You can pay your house off, but you still don't own it because you can be kicked out of your house if you don't pay your property taxes. Okay. Now we know and we understand property taxes unconstitutional. Let me give you a couple of quick numbers. $3,800 is the average property tax bill. Pretty low in Tennessee. We've got somebody saying I pay $1,200. In Alabama, I think that's the lowest we've got so far. That's $882 a year. $882 a year. That's pretty low. The state of Illinois is the second highest property tax. We've got the second highest property taxes in the nation. As I told you that, we've got $6,000, somebody paying we've got somebody paying $9,000. So typical homeowner in Illinois. Now this is average $4,800 annually on property taxes. Now in some areas, the average In New Jersey, it's upward of $6,000 per year. So New Jersey is number one. Or no, some can figure up to $6,000 per year in Illinois. Sorry, I messed that up. Now it's even higher from what I understand because Kristen Grundler, she just said that she pays $9,000. So I pulled these numbers from, of course, the Bureau, right? The U.S. Census data, it collects this kind of stuff. So you can obviously tell that these numbers are very, very low. $4,800 is the average here of what an Illinoisan pays. And then it could be upwards to 6,000. But now I'm hearing upwards to 9,000 because that's what Kristen Grundler pays. And she lives in the state of Illinois. Now you look at New Jersey, their average cost of property taxes is $8,797. That's the highest in the United States. That's New Jersey. Okay, we're the second highest. New Jersey is the first. So what do property taxes pay for? What do they pay for? Well, in the United States from 2000 to 2020, spending went up 27% in schools, and that's averaging $16,000 per student. That's how much we're spending on students per student. Now it's much higher here in the state of Illinois average, but that nationwide average, you're spending about $16,000 per student in the school district. All of your property taxes, almost all of them, go towards the school. It's not going towards roads. It's not going towards hard infrastructure. It's not going towards bridges. It's not going towards roads. It's not going towards fire, police, none of that. It's mainly schools. And you're like, okay, if it's not going towards all these other things, that's fine. As long as we have a good school district, I don't mind paying for it. And more money, of course, means better results. That's not true. Taxpayers, they spend nearly $30,000 per CPUS student. That's Chicago Public Students, Chicago Public Schools. The students, you spend as a taxpayer, as taxpayers, $30,000 per student in the Chicago Public School System in 2023. Those are the numbers. Now, the Chicago Public Schools per student, that spending doubled, okay, while the student enrollment shrank 20% over the last decade. So over the last 10 years, we're looking at double. So it used to be about like 15,000 you'd spend on a Chicago Public School student. Now you're spending about $30,000 in the last decade, although the enrollment shrank 20%. Okay, so Unit 5, on average, they spend about $12,363 per student. Okay, in Bloomington School District 87, they spend about $15,700 per student each year. That's a lot of money per student. Now, despite that increase, like I told you, from 2000 to 2020, spending went up on students, went up on school districts 27%. Now we're looking at about a nationwide average, about $16,000 are spent per student nationwide. Okay, that's an average nationwide. Despite everything quantifiable that shows how schools are doing, I mean, everything is plummeting. Reading scores, math scores, you name it, the kids aren't learning. Despite all that spending, the kids aren't learning. So I want to point this out. Unit 5, I just told you, they spend about $12,000 per student. Unit 5, only 30% of children can read. Okay, now they spend less on students per student than District 87. District 87 spends about $15,700 per student. So that's more than 12,000, okay? Guess what? District 87, their reading scores are worse. So they have more money, but yet their scores are worse. Tell me how that works out. They've got way more money to spend on a student. I mean, $3,000 extra per student. But get this, the numbers here, District 87 students, only 15% of kids can read at grade level. And then the Chicago public school system, shouldn't shock you, but it shocks me, a shocking 80 out of every 100 students can't read at grade level. So 80% of students at CPS can't read at grade level. That's bad. So only 20% of CPS students can read at grade level. This is bad. And then you look at Black students is even worse at the Chicago public school system. It's 11 out of every 100 Black students can read at grade level. That's it. That's it. 11 out of every 100 Black students can read at grade level. More money, and we're worse off. So I just told you that. So there's this claim out there that money equals better outcomes for these students. And that's not the case when it comes to our public schools. Now, the left is so evil because logically, what we think is if you have more money coming in, then you can spend it on what you need, and more money means better outcomes. That's how you run your household at home. Okay. You have more income, then you spend it on maybe a new water heater for your family, which is, good. And it increases the value of your home. This is a need. Your water heater hasn't been heating up, or you have to light the pilot light at the bottom of the water heater every time you want to take a hot shower. Okay, I've been there. I get it. So you spend that money on what you need in your household. You get more income. You get a nice check, bonus from work. You spend it on what you need. That's not the case when it comes to public schools because it's not their money, it's your money. Okay? If you get a birthday card from grandma and grandma gives you an extra $500 to spend, if you're fiscally smart, you're going to spend it on what you need. Okay? But because it's not your money, you're more likely to take the $500 that grandma gave you in the gift card or in a birthday card and go spend it on something that you want. Okay. So it's not their money, it's your money, and they don't care how they spend it because they didn't work for it. Okay. So every time you're writing out your check to pay your property tax bill or you're sending it, automatically, you're sending it to the school. So it's not going to roads, it's not really going to hard infrastructure, it's not going to police and fire, it's going to the schools. Big majority of it. So where does the money go once the schools get it? I do have to take a quick break. But now we know that, you're spending 9,000. Some people here in this community, Downs, Illinois, you're spending $9,000 a year. And now think of everybody who lives in that community. Okay. We're sending all of that money to the schools and they're spending it, like I said, it's about $16,000 per student. That money is not, there's no good outcome it is what we would call a loss leader in this country. Public education is a loss leader. I am going to unpack where this money goes once the school gets it next on the buzz. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. I pay $5,400 on an $89,000 house in Normal, Illinois. Well, Sherry, you are paying well above what they say the average is in Illinois. That's $4,800 is the average cost of what the property tax payers will pay on property taxes annually, $4,800. You're in an area that is well above the average when it comes to Illinois. You can't own property land in the United States. You can only rent the land from the government. Yes, this is why fundamentally property taxes is unconstitutional. It's just unconstitutional. Steve, whatever, man. Screw you, pal, because we're sitting here paying $9,000 for our property taxes, but Tennessee also has it. There has been a big push by Governor Greg Abbott. He's actually been calling for the elimination of property taxes. But Steve, yes, today is National Black Cat Day. I do have a cat named Colt. Steve, he was there. Wally, Steve and I, we met each other, and I actually adopted the cat from PetSmart right over here on Veterans. And it was a great time because we were just chatting about our little kittens, and Colt is so fat. He's a fat cat, and I don't think they bring bad luck because since I've gotten the cat, everything great has been going on in my life, and really I attribute it to God, right? Everything has been great, but yes, black cats, I don't think they bring bad luck. I don't believe in that nonsense. But also today is Frankenstein Friday. Let the Halloween fun begin. Um, on Monday, what I plan on doing is a special Hallows Eve. So Halloween is actually a Christian holiday, and I kind of want to talk about that coming up next week with Pastor Timothy James Farrell from the Tabernacle. I think that you guys will get a kick out of what Halloween actually is and how it's a Christian holiday. But we're going to be back talking about property taxes a little bit later. We will be talking a bit about Mark Meadows because Mark Meadows, he actually worked for the FBI as an informant. He wore wire and he recorded all of the conversations he had with President Donald Trump while he was chief of staff to President Donald Trump, Mark Meadows. That's unconstitutional and it's criminal. This government, this is the government that we live in and live with. It's up to us to change that. That's unconstitutional and it's criminal. You can't wear a wire um, and, try to that it's so wrong. And then you compare that to the FBI having over 40 confidential human sources involved in the Biden crime family investigations. Okay, so the FBI Washington field office, they shut down subpoenas, search warrants, investigations into the Bidens. This is all according to documents obtained by Chuck Grassley, Senator Chuck Grassley. These revelations were laid out in a letter Grassley wrote to the Attorney General Merrick Garland and the FBI Director Christopher Wray. In that letter, he says, based on the information provided to my office over a period of years by multiple credible whistleblowers, there appears to be an effort within the Justice Department and FBI to shut down investigation activity relating to the Biden family. That's true. Such decisions point to a significant political bias infecting the decision making of not only the Attorney General and the FBI Director, but also a line of agents and prosecutors. So he writes this to a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland and the FBI Director Christopher Wray. He also added that our republic cannot survive such a political infection, and you have an obligation to this country to clear the air. So, like I said, FBI had 40 confidential human sources involved in the Biden family crime investigations. Um, and the field office has shut down subpoenas, warrants, investigations um, into the Bidens. So compare that story to Mark Meadows working with the FBI as an informant and wore wire during Trump's presidency. Not only is that unconstitutional, but it's criminal, and it's insanity. It's like you compare those two stories. It's so clear that we have a two-tier justice system. And if you are an ally of the police state, then you will not be subject to any kind of investigations. Joe Biden has been deemed an ally. Donald Trump has been deemed an enemy. So we're going to talk a little bit more on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. You can't own property, land in the United States. You can only rent the land from the government via your property taxes. Yes, that's why I think property taxes, it's unconstitutional really, because the pursuit of happiness, there's this understanding that pursuit of happiness means ownership, private ownership. It's associated with private ownership, and you can't have ownership of your land even if you buy your house outright. If you just buy your house, you pay your house off, you're still renting the land that it sits on. So technically, you don't even own the house because you can't move the house, right? The house is on the land. So you're renting your property from the government. And that's what we've been talking about. Sherry, she's telling me that she spends $5,400 on a $180,000 house in Normal, Illinois. That's insane. insane. That's wild. Sherry, I hate to break it to you. You are actually paying well above the average price of property taxes. It's $4,800 here in the state of Illinois on average. That's how much Illinoisans pay. But I mean, there's people in Downs. Kristen Grundler, she pays $9,000 in property taxes here in the state of Illinois. Like I said, the state of Illinois is the second highest when it comes to property taxes. We pay the second highest property taxes in the entire United States. So before we took the break, I was telling you that all of your property taxes, they go to the schools. Okay, you look at the numbers, they break it down, it goes to the schools. And you might think to yourself, well, I don't mind if it goes to the schools. I'm cool with that because if they get more money, then we're going to get more results. We're going to get the kids great education. They're going to learn. And I'm okay with spending in Unit 5, $12,000 per student. In Bloomington District 87, that's $15,000 per student. Here's how I know, and leftists, they try to convince you that more money means better outcomes in public schools. Okay. They say, "Hey, don't you care about the children? Don't you care about the kids? You need to care about the kids. You need to give more money, fork it over, because we're educating your children and they need more money." They always chalk it up to, well, we need more funding. We need more funding. Look at Bloomington District 87. Like I said, they spend $15,000 per student. Only 15% of the kids can read at grade level. So you are paying $15,000 per student each year for them to not even read. Okay, for only 15% of the kids to read at District 87. Then look at this. You spend significantly less, not significantly, but about $3,000 less if you're in the Unit 5 school district because they spend about $12,000 per student. And they have a higher reading rate. I mean, only 30% of kids can read at grade level at Unit 5 schools. But there it is. I mean, it just shows you. Bloomington District 87, they spend more on kids, but they have worse results than actually Unit 5, who spends $12,000 per student, but they have 30% of kids that can't read. I mean, both of them are abysmal. But the school that has more money per student and is giving more money per student is actually doing worse than the school that has less money spent per student. So, where's the money going to? Because clearly it's not going to the kids because the kids can't learn. Okay. Or the kids can't read. They're not learning. So, where is the money going? Well, I'll tell you, administration. From 2000 to 2019, the number of district administrators grew by a whopping 87.6% during this 19-year period. Now, that far outpaces the number of how many students and teachers we grew. Okay, the student growth was only 7% of teachers, and the teacher growth was only 8%. Okay, so it's just crazy to me. And ask yourself this, was there a vice principal or a secretary or an administrator that had a great impact on your life? Now, I can name all the teachers that had a wonderful impact on my life, and I had some pretty great teachers in my school district. I had some pretty bad ones, but I had some pretty good ones too. And I can name a couple of teachers that had a great impact on my life. Can you name a vice principal or a DEI chief officer that had a great impact on your life? No, of course not. Because the money's not going to teachers. The money's going to these secretaries, to the principals, to the administration. Okay. So in 2023, the average teacher salary in the United States was $68,000. In 2023, the average annual wage for education administrators was $102,000. Wow. These are averages, folks. And for teachers and administrators, for both of them, that's actually not too bad. So they're always constantly saying, "Oh, teachers don't get paid enough. Teachers don't get paid enough." No, I think they get paid plenty because then you have to account for all of the benefits and then the 3 months off a year. Because I didn't annualize any of that. Really, in the United States, if you're making $68,000 a year with 3 months off, you're looking at about $80,000 a year. So you're making $80,000 a year as a teacher, but the kids can't read. kids can't read. Plus, they get all kinds of benefits, full benefits, car stipends, you name it. How do you get paid this much money when the kids can't read and you're not actually doing your job? Until the kids can read, you get nothing. I think you should get nothing. Absolutely nothing. Plus, they hire all kinds of these DEI officers, these chief diversity officers at Unit 5 schools. Crystal Shelvin, she makes $110,000 in Columbus, Ohio. This is the highest one that I can see. It's $137,000 for these DEI instructors. Your tax dollars, it's funding propaganda concentration camps, okay? School choice. I am for school choice. I have yet to hear a solid argument against school choice or school vouchers. The money should be attached to the child, not the school. Okay, the money is not going towards the children, clearly, because they're not even able to read. And this whole idea, and they try to manipulate you because you you get more income into your house, you're going to spend it on what you need. Okay, if you get a bonus at work, you're going to spend it on what you need. If you get a raise at work, you're going to spend it on what you need, whether that be like a new water heater, a new dryer. You're going to spend it on what you need. Okay, that's not the case in the public schools. Why? Because it's not their money. They have no obligation to they it's not accountable. So this is another thing too with school choice, and we need to start having schools compete with each other again, or compete with each other, because the moment your kid goes off to college, it'll force parents to be involved. Now, there is a societal issue here. There's a lot of things probably contributing to those numbers that District 87's kids, they can't read at grade level. And I find it so funny because we have so much literature, more access to literature than we have ever had in any point in history. At any point in history, we have access to every single book known to man available on our cell phones. Okay, so we have access to literature, but we're living in a time where only 15% of kids in District 87 schools can read. And it's just wild to me. So we need to attach that money to the student and get the schools to compete with one another. And, when you're a parent and you send your kid off to college, you're writing that check and you're sending that check to the college or whatever, and you have accountability for that child's education once you're writing the check. Property taxes, I think people don't quite understand where that money goes, and it's just kind of like, yeah, it's a property tax bill, I've got to pay my taxes, and you don't really understand that that's going towards your kid's education. So if little Timmy comes home and he's got F's on his report card, that $9,000 property tax bill that you just cut, that's for that. Okay, that's what you're paying for. You're paying $9,000 for Timmy to come home and have F's on his report card. Now, when you're cutting a check for college and you're, keeping track of your kids' grades, or they have to drop out of school, or they can't keep up their grades and the college kicks them out, you are more accountable. You're constantly trying to see if your kids are doing well in college, because guess who's paying for that? If you pay for your kids' college, right? Maybe some of you don't. But if you're paying for your kids' college, you're going to be more accountable. That's why you are more involved in asking, hey, what are your grades like this semester? And if we were to attach that money to the student and make parents accountable for that money, and property tax, you just think that it goes, it doesn't just, it goes to the schools. You're writing a check for the schools, for your kid to go to school. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but I did want to get through all of this today, this morning. It's Friday, and House Speaker, yeah, we can't control who gets into the House Speakership role. We can't really even control what kind of missiles that the United States decides to launch. We can't decide, or we can't really control what wars are started where, but we can make a difference when it comes to property taxes. And like I said, McLean County, your property taxes are going up. And yes, politicians are going to sit there and tell you, well, the rate didn't go up. Yeah, but your budget is up. by 15%. It's a 15% increase. You need to cut that budget so that way you can so that way you can lower the taxes on the people. I do have to take a break. This is Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. You guys can see us live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Cat Peterson 929. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, but don't stop there. Go ahead, subscribe to the DPB show. David Paul Blumenshine joining me. It's Friday. How are you?
Friday, Cat.
It's-
Life is amazing. Fall is upon us. You know, the colors are at peak. Get out, enjoy it. It's going to be a little cooler weekend, but you know what? Eventually the frost will be on the pumpkin, which is going to happen next week. So enjoy this weekend. It's a beautiful fall harvest type of weekend.
I know, and I'm excited because I'm going to the Lincoln Reagan dinner tonight
You
at
are.
6:00 with
You
Ty
better
Smith,
be.
but you're not going to be there.
No, Kat, I'm not going to be there. I happen to be heading to Effingham. Many of you might also be heading to Effingham. If you listen to this program, you know that we've had Darren Bailey on here. Darren is running for the 12th congressional seat. He is hosting tonight an event that features Donald Trump Jr., and they will be handing out memoirs of Trump, his dad's book, to every person that joins us tonight at the event in Effingham at the Thelma Keller Convention Center.
Well, that's exciting, and I'm glad that you're here because I have to get your reaction to this. So, news just in. Allegedly, Mark Meadows worked for the FBI as an informant, David Paul, and he wore a wire to record all of the conversations that he and President Donald Trump were having while Mark Meadows served as the chief of staff to Donald Trump. Not only is that it's unconstitutional, but it's also criminal. This is the government we live with, and it's up to us to change that. But I need to tell you a contrasting story. But first, reaction to that: Mark Meadows wearing a wire while he's the chief of staff to Donald Trump.
Would it surprise you if the former president was wiretapping a candidate for president, a nominee? What would surprise you? At what level do they go to? No, there's nothing surprising about that. If indeed it turns out to be verified and the evidence is brought forward that Mark Meadows wore a wiretap, which, you know, once again, nothing beyond these agency positions that we deal with today. They have been weaponized by the government. And that's why people are so concerned about the constitutional republic that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
But not as concerned, because I know you're going to play it for me, because if we don't get to it, Rush Limbaugh has a great way of addressing our country's sagas, challenges that we face. It's up on our Facebook page. He talks about it, and it says all that we need to know. These things, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just a matter of the different means by which we achieve these goals that, for whatever reason, we have bad actors, government gangsters, according to Kash Patel, right?
Mm-hmm.
These people are gangsters.
They are. Let's take a listen to Rush Limbaugh. Here we go.
You know, my friends, it's very simple. And I have used this phrase consistently over the course of my 20 plus years behind the golden EIB microphone. What I believe has made the country great. And I've addressed this. When I do my rare, overwhelmingly popular public appearances, I challenge the audience to think about something. You ever wonder how it is and why it became so that a population at any one time of less than 300 million people created the highest standard of living, progress, economic, political, education, any standard you want to measure? The United States of America has been the greatest population of human beings in the history of the world. There have been civilizations, countries, and populations long before us that were the trademark of their day. I mean, they're the standard bearers of their day. They can't compare to us. And they've been around thousands of years. Now, what was it? What is it? What is it that makes 300? Our DNA is no different than the Chi-Com DNA, talking about in terms of humanity. Our DNA is no different than any other human being anywhere on Earth or has ever been on Earth. Well, what is it about this 200, 300 million people that are created by far? There's no comparison. The greatest country, collection of human beings on the face of the earth for good. We feed the world. We relieve the world. We repair the world. We defend the world. We have liberated hundreds of millions of people who have lived in bondage and slavery. What is it about us? We're not born special in terms of our DNA. What is it? I ask people to think about this, and because I don't think that this is part and parcel of what I call American exceptionalism. What is American exceptionalism? It's not that we're better people. It's not that we're smarter. It's not that we have an advantage because of our geography, because we clearly don't. So what is it that sets us apart? And there's one answer. And it's found in the Declaration of Independence. We are all endowed by our Creator. So we acknowledge God as a country. When we were founded, we acknowledge God. We were all created. We are all endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Undeniable, they're just there. And they come from the Creator. Among them, but not just, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
There you go.
I love it. That's Rush Limbaugh, and we're going to unpack it here on the other side. Got to take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. So do appreciate it. David Paul Blumenshine right over there. What makes us so great?
Well, no matter how many bad actors there are, well, because there will always be bad actors. You know, the one thing that, and I know that already this morning, Kat, you and I've kind of jostled a little bit, and that's okay because that's what life's about. And we do that as conservatives. We're not Borgs, we're not cyborgs. We don't repeat the same talking points that the leftists do, that they get from the New York Times, which is the purveyor of misinformation and disinformation, because that's what they do. You know, come on, just a few things like the Russia saga, the PP hoax, all the things that they've come up with. But net of it is this, Kat. We are the greatest country ever on the face of the earth. That is proven. And we're going to find a way to get rid of those bad actors, those government gangsters. It's already being done. I mean, it doesn't happen as quickly as we'd like. Once again, once you get ticks embedded into the skin, it takes a while to get that head of the tick out of there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you know, Mike Johnson, I know that's where I was going with this, is that you said that Pozo has, you know, Jack Pozobic, you know, has some issues with Mike Johnson. There's Mike Johnson. Go out to Rumble and Google Mike Johnson and Mayorkas and the grilling he did. Also Merrick Garland. I mean, talking about hard constitutional facts. Mike Johnson is a constitutional lawyer. I'm not saying that he's comparable, not quite Jim Jordan, but he's comparable. And I think it's a great solution. He's a man of faith. You know, when you hear what he did, obviously, upon exiting that room, and you've got to realize, do you understand what happened there, Kat, in behind the scenes and how they came up with Mike Johnson?
Yeah, they knelt, they prayed.
No. Before that, before they selected Mike Johnson.
Oh, no.
How they came to Mike Johnson? He was the second in most of the votes. And they couldn't figure out who was undergirding this thing. Scalise, Brenner, not Brenner. What's his name? Brenner. All of the different candidates. Jordan. It didn't matter. It was Kevin McCarthy. So when they chose the second, Scalise is from Louisiana. His guy is Mike Johnson. Go ahead.
We're going to be back on the air, folks. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. What makes America so exceptional? We were playing the Rush Limbaugh clip, and he just said it's because we recognize, and really it's just America chose God.
Yes.
I've been saying this with everything with the attacks with Israel, right? You know, Israel, they have managed to overcome obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. I mean, they've been attacked for generations, you know, and it began in 70 AD with the Roman
4,000 years ago.
Empire.
Yes.
4,000 years ago, and they've been dealing with it ever since the eradication of Jews, the Holocaust, right? God chose Israel, but we chose God
Yes.
as America, and we're incredibly blessed by that. And Israel, they are supernaturally able to exist because God chose Israel, I think, because it's supernatural. By every metric and standard, you would think that Israel should be wiped out by now, but it's not. It just it continues to stay where it's at, just this little tiny sliver, you
Yeah.
know, and it continues to weather all of the storms.
Endure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's a
we
beacon of hope in this world. And you're right, Kat. I mean, we have we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, not born equal, created equal.
Mhm.
They're endowed by their creator, you know, with such inalienable rights, rights that can't be ever taken away, not by the government, not by anyone, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No other document exists in the world outside of the Holy Scriptures that speaks into life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We know where that came from. It came from God,
Mhm.
not from government.
Yeah, not from government. We're going to be taking a quick break here in just a couple of minutes, but we've got to talk about the House Speaker. I do want to talk about House Speaker Mike Johnson. I'm hesitant of House Speaker Mike Johnson. I do think that he is a godly man. I'm not saying that. I gave some receipts out here. I pulled the tweet from 2020 where he says that there is no denying that George Floyd was murdered, even after watching or no denying that he was murdered, even after watching the video. And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" When I watched that video, it's clear that George Floyd died of an overdose. You know what I mean? Like, the autopsy is out. I know he came out in 2020, said that, and I don't know what his thoughts on it are now, Mike Johnson. But there's just some things that, I mean, he was on Sean Hannity, and he talked about how his principles surrounding the assistance of funding Ukraine is evolving. And I just I don't know. I'm worried and I'm skeptical. Just probably because I've been burned way too many times, right?
Well, I mean, once again, yeah, I don't think that we should trust any of these people.
I don't.
I mean, I because he's a faithful man, I get it. But he's imperfect.
Yeah.
He's an imperfect man. I think he admits that. He tells people that. I think he has said that.
Mhm.
So anybody can take and do the naval analysis of another person. You know, if you go back into my day, you can find plenty of my sins.
Yeah.
Is that what we're going to talk about, or are we going to go forward? Earlier this week, Kat, I told you Kevin McCarthy would not be back in the speakership.
You did. You called it. You said
Yes.
Kevin McCarthy would not be
And
back.
there's a reason for that. Kevin McCarthy was undermining the entire process for weeks.
Yes, and that's why they couldn't get somebody. We're going to unpack that speakership race next on The Buzz. This is Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. If you're watching, go ahead, smash the like button and share this out with your friends. Oh, how I miss Rush Limbaugh. Yes, Darren, I also miss Rush Limbaugh. We also have Sherry. She goes, all the evil crap started with Obama Dama. I believe he's the Antichrist. Possibly. I don't know. I've got some thoughts. I think possibly Vivek. I like Vivek. That's the thing. Maybe Vivek Ramaswamy. I run this over my head and probably shouldn't. But who's going to be the Antichrist. I've thought maybe Elon Musk, because he's going to be a friend of all people, right? And it might be somebody within the ranks.
I think that no eye has seen, no ear has heard. We have no clue about who is going to be those things manifested, how they're manifested. Purely, you got to realize that we're working off of a map that's very historical, right? And trying to unpack that is tough. You know, who's to say the Antichrist? He walk amongst us? Is it
Who knows?
Antichrist? I don't know. Kat, I think that the key is
I don't think Obama's a bad guess.
We're failed human beings, and you know, and one of the things that I shared this morning on my story, my Facebook page, is from Philippians 3, right? Indeed, I count everything as a loss because of the surpassing power or the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ. But whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything. Oh, hold on. I lost my place here. It's not letting me do it. I have to go back all the way. Indeed, I count everything as lost because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and may share his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible, I may attain the resurrection from the dead. You know, the humility of living on this earth, it's not demonstrated. You know, I know when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the process of choosing a speakership, as imperfect as it is. We need to implode the system. Trump is doing that. Whatever your thoughts are of Trump, put those aside. Look at what he has exposed in the deep state. You said you went to see a police state. I encourage everybody to go see it.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. Oh, I mean, police state, the misconceptions that I had, and I'm tuned in, right, David Paul?
Yeah.
The misconceptions I had about what happened at January 6th. I mean, I've had friends. I mean, I've had friends. I'm not going to say their names because in fear of the FBI coming and knocking on their door, I've had friends that won't talk about it because they fear what will happen. What has happened to people will happen to them.
Yes, because the local Democratic Socialists of America listen to Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. And they have no problem calling over to the field offices of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to report nonsense because.
Well, and here's the thing, David, in police state, and I'm excited to talk about this with you, hopefully in the 8:00 hour here a little bit. Because when the FBI came and knocked on your door, we've learned now, and this is exposed in the police state film, that these FBI agents, if they opened up cases and even closed those cases without prosecuting or filing charges, arresting, because obviously you weren't arrested, if they even just opened up inquiry and visited you, and those FBI agents who visited you, they probably got $50,000 each, $30,000 to $50,000. For just inquiring people who were there at January 6th. That was the incentive.
Do you know,
by the Bureau,
that when the FBI comes to town and goes knocking at people's doors, that they notified the Normal Police Department?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You need to FOIA that. In the month of January, and any correspondence that the Federal Bureau of Investigation might have had with the town of Normal.
And they allowed those FBI agents to go to your door despite.
They don't have a choice. That's like the marshals. The marshals have jurisdiction over the town of Normal. They just do it out of a courtesy, because if people call and say, "Hey, listen, I've got somebody knocking at my door," and they say they're from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, you would want to know that they're legitimate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and those agents, they were probably paid big money to just come and talk to you. It didn't even have to lead anywhere. but they were just coming to talk to you, and that's taxpayer money, okay? They're not in the business of, making money themselves. That is coming from you. So your taxpayer money went to these FBI agents knowing that they weren't going to be able to arrest David for anything. They weren't going to be able to open up any kind of just inquiry. It was just inquiry. And they were getting paid to just kind of play cutesy time and,
Well,
dance around them.
but here's how we got ahead of it at Cities 92. We came out. I did my show on the 10th of January, 2021.
Mhm.
And I exposed everything that we saw, what we witnessed, and not everything. I mean, you couldn't. I wish I would have had a GoPro camera
Mhm.
to record everything. There's thousands of hours of videotape from that day.
We're going to get to
Hopefully
it
they
here
release it.
on the Morning Buzz. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. This is Cities 92.9. It's Friday morning, 8:05 a.m., 64 degrees. 64 degrees out there. It's going to cool down this weekend, but David Paul Blumenshine is joining me in studio. And before we get to the House Speaker race, I really want to talk about police state because I'm glad that you're in studio because you were there that day, January 6th. And me, as a conservative, I'm very tuned in. Okay, I'm very tuned in to what happened that day. I've have several friends who were there that day. They've told me their eyewitnesses account. I wasn't there. I actually got a plane ticket to go with my friend that day, but I didn't go. Something told me to stay home to study for my finals.
Yeah,
And
I mean, that's more important than going out to a rally, especially if you're paying for the education.
yeah, yeah. Well,
But I do believe this, Kat, you would have gotten more of an education as a journalist that day in DC.
oh
And
yeah.
I don't know what little voice was talking to you. Could it be Satan?
It could have been. Well, and I don't know. After watching Police State, I'm kind of glad because
That was my best imitation of the church
could it
lady.
be Satan?
Satan?
But no, serious. I wanted to go, but I didn't for some odd reason. And I'm glad because I watched the movie Police State. That's by Dinesh D'Souza, Dan Bongino, and this movie is insane. What happened? What has gone on with the J6ers, and what is continuing to go on? The FBI busting down the door of an elderly man who wasn't even there for the rally. He was just there in Washington, D.C. that day and was like, oh, the president's speaking. Donald Trump is speaking. I'm going to go wander over here and listen to him. He's not wearing a MAGA. He's not even really a Trump supporter. But later on, this elderly man, he's in a cafe and he's describing what happened to his friends and neighbors in this little cafe in his community. His neighbor rats him out to the FBI. The FBI then goes to not only his apartment, but his mother's apartment because he's taking care of his mother. She's very elderly. He's an elderly man with a cane and he's taking care of his mother. He was on his mother's couch. They raided both places. Okay. And in the video footage, you can see the FBI agents at his apartment where he's not at. He's at his mom's place. They take a piece of duct tape because he's got a little Ring doorbell camera. They cover up the Ring doorbell camera, but there's a second camera in the peephole. So they didn't know about the peephole having a camera in it. So this was all on tape. They covered up the Ring doorbell camera before all the other FBI agents came in and they busted down the door. Now, tell me, if somebody has a legal search warrant, why would they be covering up the camera with the duct tape? So they bust in, they trash his apartment. They bust into his parent or his mom's house where he's at, and they cuff him. They parade him out in front of NBC. The cameras are there, and there's just so much. I mean, Ashley Babbitt, I had no idea. She didn't climb through a window. She didn't climb up the walls. It was a door inside the Capitol building.
Yeah.
Multiple people were going through that door before Ashley Babbitt went through that door. She didn't bust out the window herself. She was climbing through along with other people. Other people were going. And this cop had no idea what her intentions were. He shot her at point blank range, and it was just a door. It wasn't even like a window. She didn't bust it out, nothing. And she died there. And then Matt Perna, this is another guy who was there that day. And you don't have to have been at January 6th to be in trouble. okay, because I'm going to get to that here in a second. But Matt Perna, he killed himself, David, because they upgraded his charges to terrorism.
Oh,
And he was only going to get like 60 days in jail. But then they upgraded his charges and he was looking at 20 to life because they were charging him as a terrorist. He was in the Capitol for not but 15 minutes. There's video footage of him being ushered in by Capitol Police. He stayed within the ropes. He's pointing at all the different artifacts in the Capitol building, in the rotunda. And then 15 minutes later, you see him walk out.
yeah.
And it's just like they slapped a terrorism and then he hangs himself after that terrorism charge. And then get this, the prosecutor tells the family after he kills himself, well, if he would have just waited another month, those charges wouldn't have stuck. So the same thing, they came to your house, David.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that they weren't going to arrest you. They knew that they weren't going to charge you. Here's why they came. I believe the documentary, the police state film, policestate.net, go get your tickets. Would they say and prove in this film is that the FBI was getting $30,000 to $50,000 just to inquire about people who were there that day. They didn't even have to be at the Capitol. They would have just been in Washington, D.C. The U.S. Marshals are working with the FBI to give them data on who took flights into Washington, D.C. that day.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to be at the Capitol. The U.S. Marshals are providing that information to the FBI. It's just wild. I know I'm going really fast.
Yeah.
But, David, FBI walks or knocks on your door.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
yeah. I'm locked and loaded, Kat. I'm ready. See, I was there versus all of the other people and naysayers and everyone else out in the listening area that doesn't necessarily agree with anything about cities or myself or whomever that is affiliated with this station, especially our headliners, Bongino, Levin, Hannity, Beck, Shapiro. They don't agree with anything we say. So it makes no sense of trying to even having civilized conversations with these folks. But here's the thing, Kat. I saw what happened with my own eyes. They don't deceive me. Why? They don't deceive me because of my faith. My eyes are open. I saw what transpired there. I went through that on January 10th on my show that I host on Sundays from 1 to 3 here at Cities 92.9. Recounting that, having eyewitnesses. I mean, I had people who went on the bus trip with us, the Stop the Steal trip, that were in studio recalling their vision, not my vision, their vision. One is an attorney who was very, he's a prominent guy in this community. He came on my show. He's a historian. He knows what he saw with his eyes. But anyhow, when the FBI knocked at my door, they weren't there to arrest me. They were there to question. They had some questions. They were following up on a complaint because our local Democratic Socialists of America filed a complaint stating that I was on video. They got proof that I might be the guy that was passing the bombs around because I have those fancy high top tennis shoes. Oh, by the way, we still haven't found that bomber. We can find everybody else, but we can't find the bomber who planted the bomb at the DNC headquarters and the RNC headquarters. But they came to my door, Kat. They didn't come to arrest me, but I told them that you have every right to remain silent, that anything you say can and will be published on the DPB show. It's amazing how that changes the whole element. This gentleman that ended up killing himself, it is so sad. Think of the individuals that just stormed the Capitol building with Tlaib and the protest of Palestine.
Well, now we've got Jamal Bowman. He's actually come out.
I mean, think of these people. Where is the justice? Because justice is only one-sided. That's what we're finding out. That's what the movie Police State is about. When there isn't equal application of the law. We live in a constitutional republic. Unfortunately, we're losing that.
Oh, it's lost.
Well,
and when you see
I don't know, Kat. Here's the thing.
Lost.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit. When you see at these theaters, the showings, if you have any red blood inside of your heart, and you see people standing up at the end of these showings of Police State, singing the national anthem, with that question at the end, and where, and you know the thing. I'm sorry, I didn't do my Joe Biden thing.
You know,
But
the
but
thing.
they asked the question, is there anything that that is still out there? Oh, say, can you see by the star? You know, you listen to the words that these people are saying, and of course, I'm grasping for it because you can tell I'm desperate because I had it in my mind and I
Yeah.
lost it because I've had too many things to remember.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you right now, and this police state film, I think you're right. Where at the end of the film, I mean, I was there in the AMC theater sweating my butt off because they cranked up the heat in Springfield. It was ridiculous. Like I've never sweat in a movie theater, but I was sweating.
They
And
didn't have the air on.
I was so uncomfortable. It was awful, watching the film, which was kind of crazy. They didn't have the air on. Or I was they had to have had the heat on because it wasn't like a hot day, right? It was kind of cool outside. They must have really actually turned on the heat and cranked it. But at the end of the film, despite all that, despite it being super hot in there, we all stood up and we sang the national anthem. And a lot of people who watch the film, they're like, "Oh, hey, it's just a horror movie. What do we do now? Like, there's nothing really we can do because." And we're gonna get to this here on the other side of the break. Is this pyramid? You don't have to have gone to January 6th to be victimized by the weaponization of the FBI. Okay, because you can just consume news, you can text friends, they have access to all of that information. Uh, and what we can do is not break our patriotic spirit and not lose faith in America. I think that that's what the end of the film was really all about was, hey, don't lose that patriotic spirit that you've got because you're going to need it when the the full force of the police state comes raining down on you. Um, Annie from the Washington Post.
Yes.
This pyramid, it's featured in the film. It's a triangle.
Okay.
Okay. At the bottom of the pyramid, it talks about it's all about news consumption and what you consume as a user of the internet. Okay. So it's a pyramid. You are an extremist level 1 if you listen to things like Fox News, CBN, and if you are a member of the Republican Party. Okay. That this is what the FBI is basing their extremism definition off of. It's the news that you consume in the internet activity that you are participating in. Number 2, on that, if you're an extremist level 2, you listen to things like Breitbart or you read Breitbart or extremist level 3, post millennial, Revolver News, National Pulse, these types of things. It's a pyramid. Annie from Washington Post, she comes here, follows me around, follows you around for like 12 hours.
Well, it was easier to follow you around.
Yeah. Yeah. David followed, he kept losing her. I tried to shake her, but it was
Not that
tough.
right now, Annie. I got things to do. We got the Governor Bailey coming into town. Well, we were hopeful future Governor Bailey to come into town. Little did we know that the election was already bought and paid for.
Yeah. So Annie follows me around. The first question she asks is what kind of news I consume. And she was asking, do you follow Breitbart? Do you follow Fox News? Do you follow Revolver News? She was asking these questions. I thought it was odd. I was like, lady, I'm a conservative. Of course I follow all of those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what do you think I'm waking up in the morning and reading MSNBC? No.
But Annie, I'm willing to read your story. Go ahead and write it.
Yes. So now, after watching this film, I truly do think that she was trying to understand my extremism level because I think that the media and the FBI, well, I know that the media and the FBI are coordinating with each other to pin down who are the so-called extremists. And they base that off of, so Google, in Facebook, they're giving all of your data away to this FBI, to the FBI, and the FBI then in return figures out if they should raid your house or not.
Not you saying that, but actual testimony in the judicial committees in Congress. They have admitted that that's what they've been doing.
Yes, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
They're
not
Facebook,
hiding it.
He comes out and he says, the FBI approached me and said that I need to censor the story with Hunter Biden and blah, blah, blah. They're working with big tech. They know the FBI is surveilling and monitoring what you are doing online, and what you are doing online will determine whether or not you're an
What we are
extremist in
doing
their book.
online.
Yeah, yes. I
What
mean,
we
if
are
you
doing.
have a cell phone, you are on their list.
That's why we encourage people to go to Rumble, because obviously it's a
Mhm.
free speech platform,
Yes.
and you need to go there. Oh, by the way, oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave? And that's a question. So when you say, have we lost it? No. We played Rush Limbaugh earlier. We are the greatest country ever on the face of the earth. No, contrary to biblical history and where everything manifests itself in the end times, the second coming of Christ, we still are a beacon of hope.
Mhm.
We are a light to the world, and the world turns to us. Why do you think our border is saturated with people wanting to enter the country?
Oh, I mean, in Police State, it talks about that. Actually, we might touch on that here. Coming up next, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. You can also see us live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Good morning, folks. This is Cities 92.9. Thanks for tuning in. Turning up the heat in the theater with conservative content is a documented tactic of the left. There's plenty of anecdotal evidence.
Anecdotal. There you go.
Anecdotal.
Anecdotal.
But yes, the heat was turned up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
miserable to watch it.
and once again, right now it is an interesting climate that we live in, because it is kind of like tomorrow is going to be 51 degrees. Today's going to be 70 as a high, with a low getting down very cool. I think it's going to get into the 30s or 40s. So that works against the HVAC systems
Mhm.
if they're not set correctly. So I don't know if they had already planned on turning on the heat in the building. Obviously,
I was
are they
sweating.
coincidence? I can't tell you.
Well, and I don't know to what degree, because this was a private showing, but they did the same thing during Sound of Freedom.
How'd you get a private showing?
Well, it's technically like a private showing
Okay.
because it's AMC didn't air any commercials prior to the film. Okay, so I was like a minute late, and I was a minute late.
And there was already in the midst of showing
the film. So there's no commercials or anything like that. So AMC doesn't sponsor it. Dinesh paid AOC to pretty much use their facilities to air the movie. So it's
AMC,
not like
not AOC, but that's all right. Let's not give her any more credit than she already gets.
AMC, not AOC. Yeah. But AMC, they show it, but it's like renting out the facility. So Dinesh and Dan, they paid AMCs, and only a few AMCs, because probably budget reasons. They only paid a few AMCs around the state to air the film. But they rented the facilities. It's not like AMC was airing that to make money off of the movie.
Yeah,
because I didn't get my tickets through AMC.
Yeah.
So
because there's cash involved in that.
Yeah.
That's how the system works. That's why it's so important that everyone gets out there and gets a copy of it, or goes to a showing, or contributes to Dinesh and Police State, because this is self-funded. It's no different than the Sound of Freedom.
Well, and I thought it was interesting. AMC, we walked in, and they didn't even want to look at our tickets.
Yeah.
They were like, they ushered us in. We like had our tickets ready to go, and like we're gonna show them, and then they're like,
yeah.
So like they didn't even like bother.
They didn't care
with like checking to make sure we bought something. It's like it was really not much. It was not about them. So it's really kind of on an honor system if you go and watch the film, because if you go to an AMC, they're not checking that ticket. Like they were like adamant about us not stopping to show them our ticket, which was odd. But they just like kind of ushered us into the theater, and I was like, okay, this is weird. They said, yeah, it's over there. They didn't even say the number of what the theater was. They just said it's over there.
That Police State thing's over there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like it was renting. So they were, the staff was probably instructed, don't take like tickets or check if they bought their ticket. Just show them the
But
door.
Kat, that's, when you talk about a system that's been rigged and set up, and I think that's kind of what we are seeing with this PBS interview with Mike Johnson. I don't know where his son that he adopted came from,
Mhm.
but I know this, that there's definitely unequivocally a movement. There's a reason why a big majority of Black America, Hispanic America, vote for the Democrats, because we have seen it. We saw it through the BEA and that messaging they put out about investing kids. They're constantly trying to move the needle on indoctrinating people. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to unroot that is just to expose them. Every time they do it, you just come out and you just say, looky here.
Yeah, this is how the system works.
That's right.
I know that's what we
And
did.
of course, they're going to say, that's all conspiracy. They're never going to answer the question. I challenge anybody to go out and watch Mike Johnson interviewing or questioning, I should say, in a judicial committee hearing, Merrick Garland. He wouldn't answer the question about the memorandum that was put out. Oh, this is about violence towards school board members. No, it's not. That's not what this was about.
That was part of police states too.
Yeah.
It was just, it's wild. What happened to women? Women. I mean, it was just women who were going to school board meetings. I mean, there was this one woman who was featured in the film, and she had her kids sitting at breakfast table. They were getting ready to start the day, and they just busted into her house and they dragged her daughter by her hoodie down the stairs.
Yeah.
The FBI agents. Her daughter.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the girl who went to the school board meeting.
Yeah. It's hard to say. Like I said, they, the old rule about an animal, especially dogs, they sense fear. I'm not saying that that's not fearful. It is. It's very fearful. But when you're doing radio and you have a means of telling the world what these people are doing at your door, and you're going to do that quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. And if you're having a conversation with me in public, don't be surprised if I don't use that on air.
Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, love, subscribe, comment, share. Kat Peterson 929. I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Right over there, David Paul Blumenshine. David, how are you?
I'm doing well, Kat. It's Friday.
It is. It is Friday.
Friday.
Which means
yes,
we're going different places, you and I.
Yes.
We are in it here at Cities 92.9. We're boots on the ground.
We're activists.
So Lincoln Reagan dinner.
We don't pretend to do news around here. We are activists.
Yes.
We do news, but we're activists.
Yeah.
We know what we're up against.
This is what I told Annie. I said, we're just doing what, other news outlets do, but on the other side.
That's right. We're doing what you do, Annie,
because
at the Washington Post or the New York Times.
Well,
yeah,
but
that's right.
They're just doing it from a different ideological perspective.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing, just on the right.
So you're going to be at the DoubleTree tonight.
Yes, at 6:00.
You and Ty Smith.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. The modern Renaissance man and Kat Peterson are going to be emceeing the Lincoln Reagan dinner for the McLean County Republican Party tonight.
Woo-hoo. And you're going to be down in Effingham.
Yes.
Kind of cool.
Yes.
Don Jr. is going to be there.
Donald Trump Jr. is going to be in the house at the Thelma Convention Center. They're expecting, I've heard numbers from close to 1,000 people, give or take a few dozen people, but they're expecting a big crowd. Imagine that.
So one thing that I want to air here is this House Speaker, Mike Johnson, because you and I kind of differ a little bit on it. We're at odds. Yeah. DPB and I, we agree on a lot. I don't know. I don't trust the guy. I don't know why. I just don't trust him. But there's videos out there of Mike Johnson doing the work, right? And going out there and being a conservative. And he has amazing records when it comes to like his freedom score, his conservative score. I mean, and even the Ukraine score, which is why I was kind of confused. I want to play this for you and get
Yeah.
your reaction, David.
Yeah.
He was on with Sean Hannity the other night after becoming speaker, and this is what he said in regards to Ukraine. Now, prior to this interview, he's been very tough on not spending in Ukraine. This Republican Mike Johnson. Here we go.
I have some criticisms about the issue of Ukraine. Number one, if you're going to fight a war, you should fight it to win it. I thought the president made a horrible mistake by denying MiGs that were offered by Poland. I think the president made a horrible mistake trying to put handcuffs on the Ukrainian army, led by Zelensky, on the issue of how they will fight and what weapons they can and cannot use, like cluster bombs. I don't like the fact that Europe doesn't pay their fair share. So they've got 78 billion. He wants another 61 billion. How will you deal with the issues that he wants to tie all of these issues together, which now gets into the budgetary process? Will you go issue by issue?
I told the staff at the White House today that our consensus among House Republicans is that we need to bifurcate those issues. I agree with your assessment in Ukraine, and that's why the American people are demanding some real accountability for the use of those dollars. Now, we can't allow Vladimir Putin to prevail in Ukraine because I don't believe it would stop there, and it would probably encourage and empower China to perhaps make a move on Taiwan. We have these concerns. We're not going to abandon them, but we have a responsibility, a stewardship responsibility over the precious treasure of the American people. And we have to make sure that the White House is providing the people with some accountability for the dollars. And we want to know.
So, David Paul, my issue with that was that he said we can't allow Russia to prevail and to take over Ukraine, and we have to be stewards, good stewards of this money, which I agree with, right? But like he's suggesting that we should continue to spend money and to avoid, like the United States has some sort of obligation to make sure Russia doesn't prevail and take over Ukraine. But like, who cares?
Well,
you know what I mean?
So they're both corrupt countries run by corrupt leaders.
That's why I don't care.
And so, but he's talking about the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people. We have an army right now that is under the commander-in-chief, Joe Biden. I still want my army, I still want my Navy, I still want my Marines to be acting to defend the country. That's what Mike Johnson's talking about there, Kat. For those people that believe it's anything less than that, he said to be a good steward of the people's money. If we're going to give money, we don't want it to be laundered through the Biden crime family.
Yeah.
On the Obama crime family. And that's what has been transpiring in Ukraine. They're not getting the sufficient weapons that we're providing. And Europe is not contributing at the level they should. And once again, we want a free Ukraine. I mean, they've tried to dig out of the hole of corruption the people of Ukraine. The Ukrainian people aren't the problem. And that's what's at issue here. You know, interesting that we're bringing this up because I'll flash my phone over. I just received a text message from Mike Johnson.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Read it out.
Well, I mean, he just says, I'm humbled that my Republican colleagues in the House united behind me as the next Republican speaker. And I owe everyone who voted for them a debt of gratitude. It's a debt I intend to repay by being the best servant leader I can be. The speaker's gavel is a solemn responsibility, especially in a time like this, when the course of history will be set by our actions over the next year. I relied on my faith in God each day before I was speaker, and I'll continue to do so each day. Scripture is very clear. God is the one who raises those up in authority. I believe that each one of us in Congress has a huge responsibility to use the gifts that God has given us to serve the people of this great country for one simple reason: they deserve it. It goes on, but I never got a communication like that from Speaker Ryan or Speaker McCarthy. And once again, this is a spam type of public push notification text, and they're looking for funding on WinRed. But it's the content of the messaging.
Yeah, well, that's part of the speaker's job, is to campaign and to get the majority to be a much bigger majority than what it is now.
Kat, not that I would have received anything from Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries, Paul Ryan. I did receive correspondence from McCarthy. No one ever leaned into their faith. I'm convinced. I'm not saying this is a perfect person, and I'm not and I'm withholding judgment. I mean, we've got a lot of work to do as a country. We've got a government that is really not operating according to the Constitution. Somebody said, well, Congress. No, Joe Biden has been operating since day one on executive orders, executive authority, which is not the Constitution that I subscribe to.
Yeah. Well, and
or the one that he placed his hand on the Bible
the
and
thing
swore.
about Mike Johnson, and I talked about the 2020 and how he thought that, Chauvin killed George Floyd. And, there's some things out there. But one thing that Mike Johnson has got are all the right people are mad at him, or all the right people are upset that he got the speakership.
Oh, yeah.
And
Because it didn't matter who it was, Kat.
yeah.
It could have been anybody. It could have been Kevin McCarthy again, which it wasn't going to be. Go out and listen to Firebrand by Matt Gaetz on Rumble. He has his own podcast now, and he'll talk about this. People said, well, was there a plan? Yes, there was a plan to expose what was going on in Congress. There's a reason why nothing got done and advanced. And these single issue things, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. The single issue bills, that's what Matt Gaetz was fighting for. And we know that Kevin McCarthy was undermining the whole process of trying to get Mike Johnson elected. And it came out of nowhere. It came out of left field. Mike Johnson came out of left field.
And that's what caught Kevin McCarthy by surprise. He never realized that they would pull the Mike Johnson card. You talk about the Trump card, hence to give another plug for Dinesh D'Souza. He has a documentary called The Trump Card. But they pulled the Trump card out, and it was Mike Johnson. And then Steve Scalise said, oh my gosh, this Kevin McCarthy is going after him now.
Yeah.
When they did a vote, they had 43. McCarthy said he had 43 votes behind closed doors. When they took the vote, no one went on the record saying they'd put McCarthy back in.
Wow.
Yeah. But McCarthy was trying to peddle that.
Yeah, saying that, hey, we'll put McCarthy back in.
Yeah, everything that went on behind closed doors is now coming out in the light of day.
I'm excited for our new House Speaker. I hope that he does great things. We're going to be back on the other side. Really quick, I do want to go through this 40. They're confidential human sources. They were involved in the Biden crime family investigations. The FBI had 40 confidential human sources. Now, the FBI Washington field office has shut down subpoenas, search warrants, investigations into the Bidens. That's all according to documents obtained by Chuck Grassley. I want to talk a little bit about that because it was also featured in the police state film that I watched. We'll be back. David, Paul Blumenschein, and I next. Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. It's a Friday morning, and man, we've been talking about so much. My good friend David Paul Blumenshine joined me at about 7:30, and in the 7 o'clock hour, we were talking a little bit about property taxes. David is actually got his show 1 to 3 on Sunday. He's having Brad Worth in to kind of go through the numbers. In the 7 o'clock hour, I talked about the woke schools and how you're paying for it via your property tax dollars. McLean County, your property taxes, they're going up, 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 up. And David, explain that a little bit. Why are the property taxes going up? Why do politicians come out and say that the tax rate is not going up and the tax rate isn't going up, but it's staying the same? Explain that.
Well, so the state applies a equalized valuation to the entire state on all property, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the property of the state. You know, what the state giveth, the state can take away.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down, there's a rate that comes down from the state. And that's what the county board is saying, that we haven't raised it, the state has raised it. Well, what happens then is naturally they haven't voted at the county board level for a tax increase. But at any time, the council can put out referendums. Obviously, inflation in of itself is taxation, because it causes people to pay more money
Mm-hmm.
that they have in their liquidity to fund their livelihoods, and how they exist, whether that be the basics, food, shelter, and the ability to move around, gasoline, things like that, or their EV vehicle, because you still have to plug it in and power the house, which indeed is driven by a coal plant.
Yeah, well, and so the rate's not going up, but the state multiplier
Yes.
has been applied, and it's also known as the equalization factor, and that's behind these higher assessments this year. Your house, it's gone up in value, so therefore you're paying more taxes. McLean County Board, what they could do is cut their budget. I know that sounds kind of crazy. They're like, oh, okay, cutting our budget. I don't think we can do that. They could cut their budget and therefore lower that rate. Actually, not just keep it at the same, but lower the rate. Therefore, they would get less for their budget, right? It's 147. It's a 15% increase, so their budget went up. So now they're going to keep it the same because they need that extra money because their budget went up 15%. If that makes sense, I know it's kind of hard.
Well,
To stay with me.
so I always say go to your computer and do the research for yourself. It's sad to see that so many people just blindly accept all of these things, but the equalized assessed value, the EAV, that's what we're talking about. In Illinois, counties are required to equalize property tax assessments so that the median level of assessment is at 33% of fair market value.
Mm.
Meaning that your assessed value. So your tax is calculated on the assessed value. So say, for instance, let's make it simple math. You have a $100,000 property, which good luck on finding one of those. Well, maybe we should make it more realistic, but let's just use $100,000. 33% is 33,000, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You factor that in against the multiplier, and there you have the tax bill.
Mm-hmm.
So if the state is constantly pushing to make sure that all values are at 33% of assessed value, inflation naturally. So now we see a spiking in the market, right? And the average sale of a new home across America is $400,000. If that were the average sale price in Illinois, 33%.
That's insane. Well, and we talked with people. I mean, people have been texting in. $6,000 is what I pay Cat. $5,400. $9,000. Kristen Grundler is paying $9,000 on her home in Downs.
Yeah.
So,
and we're not disclosing anything you can't look up on by yourself. You can. All this is
well, and
public,
they texted
transparent.
in,
That's
right? She texted in with her
yeah.
name.
I mean, it's information that's out there. You can look at everyone's property tax bill.
Yeah. What's incredible is where all of those property taxes go. people are, signing off their checks and blah, blah, blah. In Illinois, we have the second highest property taxes in the country. Where do you think your property taxes are going? It's to the schools. It's to the schools. A majority of it, actually, almost all of it. I'm just going to say that almost all of it is going to the schools. From 2000 to 2020, spending on the schools, spending went up. So now are now a national average. It's $16,000 per student. That's how much you're paying. You're here in the state of Illinois. You're probably paying way more than that. I don't know what our national spend is, but at Unit 5 the average spend is $12,000 per student. At District 87, you're looking at about $15,000 per student each year. Property taxes, they're unconstitutional. You are renting essentially your land from the government, because at the end of the day, if you don't pay your property taxes, guys with guns come and take it or come and take you to jail.
Well, there's a tax. There's a tax sale. Yeah. It's, yeah, I hope it doesn't get to that level, but you're right. There's something about it. Hey, Kat, something I just realized. In Cook County, so we just said that 33% of assessed values, the prior assessed values, will be increased or decreased by a factor that corrects this to 33%, because Cook County assesses residential property at 10% of fair market value rather than 33% required by state law. Cook County's equalization factor can approach 3, while that of other counties are typically closer to 1.0. The equalization factor is then multiplied by your property's assessed value. Cook County basically, think about this. No wonder there's such financial problems in Cook County, in the city of Chicago, because they don't even adhere to state law. I mean,
well, McLean County doesn't either.
Well, I mean, McLean County, I think, once again,
not when it comes to this, to other things, right? We have that new statute where we're not following the state statute that says, hey, an incorporated town, the town of Normal, I should say, the town of Normal doesn't follow state law.
Well, they rewrite or revamp or try to change it. That's right. That's right. Legislate it away, which, once again, that's part of why it is important that you all get to the ballot box, or you get a ballot and figure out how to get that counted. There's means of doing that, either turning it in or dropping it off. But definitely you need to vote, because your vote counts. I mean, it does count. It counts, and that's what you get for your vote, is representation like this.
All right. I'm going to be back here on the Morning Buzz. We've got to take a quick break. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. David Paul Blumenshine right over there. If you're watching, smash the like button. Yes, so Cook County is not operating within that state multiplier.
Yeah, law. Cook County EAV example, and it gives one. Cook County Assessor's Office calculates the EAV of your property by taking the market value of your home, multiplying it against the county property tax assessment ratio of 10%. So they're flat out just calculates the EAV of the property by taking the market value. So if your market value is $250,000, you multiply that by 10% of the assessed value, $25,000. Then by 2.9706 to get the EAV of 74,265. That gets back to why it is that the property tax values, when you hear these exorbitant amounts, that's why you get it. And you can make the play that we didn't increase taxes, the state did. Well, but you still spent the money.
Yes,
there's a certain amount of money that's coming in, and when we talked about balanced budgets is spending all the money that you appropriated. You haven't saved. Where's the rainy day fund?
Yeah.
Does McLean County have a rainy day fund? It's a good question to ask.
You're spending it, and what it is, it's administration.
What are the reserves? how much do we have in reserve? I know there is an amount. I will say this, for the most part, as I said in my public comment or my questioning, the Spanish Inquisition, McLean County's done a very good job of managing the money, being a good steward. Unfortunately, they haven't gotten us into debt, but couldn't they make it a little less of a burden on the taxpayers in McLean County
Mm-hmm.
by not spending everything that we bring in
Yeah.
and trying to reduce taxes that way? You can reduce taxes
By not spending so much.
by not, yes,
That's
spending.
cutting the budget.
Yes.
You don't spend so much, and then you can lower the rate. And that you're getting more money because that rate and what we just explained, right? You're
Mhm.
getting more money in because of what we just explained with the state.
The equalized assessed value.
You're getting
EAV.
more money. Who's to say that you have to take all of that money?
Yeah.
You can cut, and you can make it easier. The tax burden,
Yep.
not so heavy. So yes, you can change that at a local level. Property taxes specifically go to schools, which you can also change. But I think it's funny. We've got people out there, the leftists, they will say this. They'll say that more money equals better schools. Okay. And they
Yeah.
think that more money equates to better schools. That's not true. When you look at the numbers, it's terrible. In fact, Bloomington District 87, 15,000 per student. The kids there can only read at 15% of the kids there can only read at grade level, or can read at grade level. The 15% of students, that's $15,000 spent on per student. Okay. Now Unit 5 on average, they spend about 12,000 per student.
Yes.
They spend less than District 87 per student, and their reading score is actually higher. So 30% of kids can read at grade level at Unit 5.
Yeah.
So there it is. Money does not equate better results. So when they're sitting there saying that you
Mm-mm.
need more money, more money, more money, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to help the children. Where is the money going to, though? Administration.
Taxpayer funded indoctrination of our kids. They have an agenda in the public school system, and it is not to help our children learn the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic.
No.
If that were the case, it would have proven out. It's that saying that I love Bongino when he said, if it was working, why isn't it working?
Yeah.
You know, we've had years and years of doing this silliness, this cutesy time, as Kat Peterson and Dan Bongino say, of throwing money at it. Throwing money at it is not the solution. If it
Yeah.
were, the scores would reflect it.
Yes, and a couple of numbers. 87%. That's how much district administrators grew from 2000 to 2019. Last like 19 or years or so. That's from 2000 to 2019. That's not even counting 2020 to 2023. We know we expanded district administrators, but it grew from 87% during that time period in those years. Compare that to the growth of teachers and students. Student growth was only 7% in that time period, and then teacher growth was only 8%.
Hey, sorry, Kat.
Mhm.
I just got distracted by searching the internet.
Mhm.
Imagine that. Did you see the witches dancing at downtown Bloomington?
Oh gosh.
The
Who are
Wizards
they?
Night Out in downtown Bloomington?
What?
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Where's your money going? Now, we've already talked about our property taxes. It's kind of like, oh, that's unconstitutional because you're renting your land. You can have bought your house, and you could buy your house and not owe anything else on it. You're renting the land because at the end of the day, if you don't pay your property taxes, you're going to be convicted and you're going to go to jail. Guys with guns will show up at your door, and you will not be able to see the light of day anymore if you don't pay your taxes. That's the IRS. So we've already covered that property tax is unconstitutional. You're renting your land from the government. Pursuit of happiness. There's the implication there that, hey, pursuit of happiness is actually private ownership and owning something. Well, and then we found out that property taxes, a majority of them are going to schools. Where are the schools spending it? Administration, district administrators, they grew from 2000 to 2019 by a whopping 87%. Compare that to the students and teachers. The students only grew 7% and teachers only grew 8% in that time period. It's insanity. So you are paying for woke indoctrination. These are propaganda concentration camps. Your tax dollars are funding that. We've got to go.
Government schools.
Happy Friday. And be sure to check out the podcast on cities929.com.
And don't forget tonight, Kat and Ty at the Double Trick. Can't wait to see a video of that.
At 6 p.m. And don't forget to listen to the David Paul Blumenshine show. That is on Sunday from 1 to 3. Subscribe to his channel. That's the DPB show. Wish him luck as well as he goes to Effingham tonight to go see Don Jr. I'm a little jealous. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye. I love you.